Captain Jiho Park stood on the bridge of the UES Determination, watching the stars blur past as his ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The Kepler 442 system spread before them like a jewel box, with 3 planets orbiting a yellow sun. But Jiho wasn't here to admire the view. The Vrick Empire had taken this system 6 months ago, and today the Galactic Federation would take it back. "Captain, we're receiving signals from the Allied fleet," said Lieutenant Yuki at the communications station. Her fingers danced over the control panel as data streamed across her screen. "The Veltharian ships are taking position on our left flank. The Zephyrian crystal ships are moving to the right." Jiho nodded and activated his command chair's display. The tactical screen showed hundreds of ships arranged in perfect formation. Humanity's 12 vessels looked small compared to the massive alien warships around them. The Veltharian ships were long and sleek like giant snakes, their hulls shimmering with scales that could deflect energy weapons. The Zephyrian vessels looked like flying cathedrals made of living crystal, each one humming with strange harmonic frequencies. "Admiral Clickthess is requesting a direct communication link," Yuki reported. The main screen flickered and showed the Zephyrian admiral. Clickthess looked like a walking piece of art made from blue crystal, with light pulsing through their transparent body in complex patterns. When they spoke, their voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Captain Park, your human ships will follow standard Federation protocol today. Stay behind the main battle line and provide support fire only when requested." Jiho felt his jaw tighten. For 300 years, humanity had been part of the Galactic Federation. They had proven themselves in dozens of conflicts, saved alien worlds, and earned respect through blood and sacrifice. Yet still, the older species treated them like children playing with toy guns. "Understood, Admiral," Jiho replied, keeping his voice level. "The human fleet stands ready to serve." Clickthess's crystalline form flickered, and the communication ended. Around the bridge, Jiho's crew exchanged glances. They all knew what that meant. Once again, humanity would be kept away from the real fighting, while the superior alien races handled the important work. "Sir," called out Commander Hana from the tactical station, "I'm detecting massive Vrick signatures on the far side of the system. Looks like they have at least 200 ships waiting for us." 200? Jiho stood up from his chair. "Intelligence said they only had 50 ships in this system. The Vrick must have reinforced the system after they detected our approach," Hana said, her face pale as she read the sensor data. "Captain, those aren't just regular Vrick ships. I'm seeing heavy battle cruisers and carrier vessels. This is going to be much harder than we planned." Jiho walked to the front of the bridge and stared at the tactical display. The Vrick Empire was humanity's greatest enemy. They looked like giant beetles with 4 arms and thick armor plating covering their bodies. Their ships were designed like fortresses, built to take punishment and keep fighting. A force of 200 Vrick vessels could destroy the entire Federation. "Fleet if they weren't careful. Signal all human ships," Jiho ordered. "Tell them to stay alert and be ready for anything." The battle began 20 minutes later. The Federation fleet moved forward in perfect formation, with the Veltharian ships leading the charge. Their serpentine vessels twisted and curved through space, firing beams of concentrated plasma at the Vrick positions. The Zephyrian crystal ships sang their harmonic battle songs, creating waves of sound that could shatter enemy hulls. At first, everything went according to plan. The Vrick ships returned fire with their heavy particle cannons, filling space with deadly energy. But the Federation had numbers and better technology. Slowly, they began to push the Vrick forces back toward the inner planets. Jiho watched from his position behind the main battle line. His hands gripped the arms of his command chair as he saw Federation ships taking damage. Several Veltharian vessels had hull breaches, and one of the smaller Zephyrian ships was spinning out of control with its crystal structure cracked down the middle. "Captain!" Yuki called out urgently. "I'm receiving a priority message from High Commander Sektar aboard the Veltharian flagship." "Put it through," Jiho said. The screen showed High Commander Sektar, the supreme leader of the Veltharian military forces. He looked like a giant cobra wearing military armor, with golden scales and eyes that glowed like amber. When he spoke, his voice hissed with barely controlled anger. "All Federation forces, this is High Commander Sektar. We have received new intelligence about additional Vrick reinforcements approaching this system. The Veltharian High Command has ordered an immediate tactical withdrawal. Jiho felt ice form in his stomach. "High Commander, what about the human forces? We have 40,000 personnel on the ground and in this fleet." "The withdrawal order applies to all Veltharian and allied vessels," Sektar replied, his golden eyes never meeting Jiho's gaze. "Federation Command will coordinate rescue operations after we regroup." The communication ended abruptly. Around the bridge, Jiho's crew stared at their screens in shock. Through the viewports, they could see the massive alien ships already beginning to turn away from the battle. "Sir," Hana said, her voice barely a whisper. "The entire Allied fleet is withdrawing. All of them. We're being left behind." Jiho activated the fleet-wide communication channel. "All human vessels, this is Captain Park. Prepare for emergency combat operations. We are now on our own." The next 72 hours became a nightmare that would haunt humanity forever. The Vrick forces, seeing the alien withdrawal, turned their full attention to the remaining human ships. Jiho's 12 vessels fought like cornered wolves, using every trick and tactic they had learned in 3 centuries of warfare. The UES Courage was the first to fall, overwhelmed by 6 Vrick battlecruisers. Captain Suman went down with her ship, still firing every weapon she had until the hull broke apart. The UES Defiance lasted another 4 hours before a Vrick boarding party killed everyone aboard. One by one, the human ships were destroyed or captured. On the planet's surface, 40,000 human soldiers and colonists fought desperately against overwhelming odds. They had been dropped there to secure the main Vrick stronghold, but now they were trapped with no way to escape. "General Wao," Dahyun sent his final message 18 hours before the end. "Tell Earth that we did our duty. Tell them we never stopped fighting." Jiho managed to escape with 3 damaged shuttles and 47 survivors. As they limped away from the system, he watched the Vrick ships hunting down the last human escape pods. There would be no prisoners. There would be no mercy. 6 days later, Ambassador Nari Kim stood before the Galactic Council in the orbital station Harmony. The Great Chamber was filled with representatives from 40 different species, all sitting in judgment of humanity's reckless actions at Kepler 442. "Ambassador Kim," said Chancellor Vormek, the massive Calthonian leader whose stone-like body towered over everyone else in the room, "the human military forces ignored direct orders to withdraw. Their destruction was the result of their own poor decisions." Nari looked around the chamber at the alien faces. Some showed fake sympathy, others couldn't hide their satisfaction. All of them had voted to abandon humanity when the fighting got too dangerous. 40,000 humans died, Nari said, her voice cold as winter. "They died because you left them to face an enemy alone. You called them allies, and then you ran when they needed you most." "The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few," said Speaker Lumina, the ethereal Nexari, whose body seemed to be made of living light. "Lesser species must accept such losses for the greater good of the Federation." Nari smiled, but there was no warmth in it. She had served as Earth's representative for 15 years, working to build trust and cooperation between humanity and the alien races. All of that ended the moment the first human ship died alone at Kepler 442. "Humanity formally withdraws from the Galactic Federation," she announced, her words echoing through the silent chamber. "Consider this our final diplomatic contact." As she walked out of the chamber, Nari could hear the aliens beginning to argue among themselves. Some were angry about losing Earth's trade and resources. Others seemed relieved to be rid of the troublesome humans. None of them understood what they had just done. They had taught humanity that friendship meant nothing when things got difficult. They had shown that promises could be broken when it was convenient. Most importantly, they had demonstrated that in this galaxy, only the strong survived. Humanity would remember these lessons, and someday the aliens would regret teaching them. 6 months had passed since the betrayal at Kepler 442, and the Sol system had become a fortress of silence. Every day, alien ships arrived at the edge of human space, sending messages and requests for meetings. Every day, they received the same automated response. "Maintain safe distance from Sol system. No diplomatic contact authorized." Dr. Minho Lee stood in the underground laboratory beneath Luna Base, watching hundreds of technicians work on projects that would have seemed impossible just a year ago. The lab stretched for kilometers in every direction, carved deep into the moon's rocky interior. Massive machines hummed and sparked as they built weapons that had never existed before. "How long until the first batch is ready?" asked Admiral Hyun Choi, walking up behind Minho. The Admiral's uniform was different now, all black instead of the blue and gold that humanity had worn as Federation members. No more alien symbols or shared insignia. Earth stood alone. 3 weeks for the ball. "Quantum fold drives," Minho replied, checking his tablet. "The nanoforge weapons will take another month, but the Prometheus protocol is already online and learning." Hyun nodded, looking at the massive computer cores that lined the far wall. The Prometheus protocol was humanity's greatest secret, an artificial intelligence network that could think faster than any biological mind. During their time in the Federation, humans had always been told that AI was too dangerous to develop. Now they understood why. The aliens had been afraid of what humanity might create. "And the production rate?" Hyun asked. "We're building ships, faster than we ever thought possible," Minho said with satisfaction. "The nano-constructors can build a full battleship in the time it used to take us to build a single fighter. We'll have 200 vessels ready within 6 months. High above them, on Earth's surface, the planet looked peaceful. Cities functioned normally, people went to work, children attended school. But beneath the ordinary appearance, humanity was transforming itself into something the galaxy had never seen before. Every factory, every research center, every resource was focused on a single goal: making the aliens pay for their betrayal. In a small coffee shop in Seoul, former Trade Representative Soo-Jin Han met with a strange visitor. The creature across, from her, looked like a walking lizard with intelligent eyes and scarred scales covering its body. This was Krikstar, one of the Draknari who had served as laborers throughout the Federation. "You understand the risks of meeting me?" Soo-Jin asked quietly, sipping her coffee. Krikstar's translator device spoke in a flat mechanical voice, but his eyes showed deep emotion. "My people have been slaves for 300 years. The Veltharians work us to death in their mining colonies. The Zephyrians use us as living tools. When humans were in the Federation, you were the only ones who treated us with respect. And now that we're gone?" Soo-Jin asked. "Things are worse," Krikstar replied. "The aliens no longer pretend to care about worker rights or safety standards. They say humans were making them soft. Many of my people die every day." Soo-Jin leaned forward. "What if I told you that might change soon?" Krikstar's scaled hands gripped his cup tighter. "My people would listen to such words. We remember our friends." Similar meetings were happening across the galaxy. In hidden locations on dozens of worlds, human agents met with members of species that had suffered under Federation rule. The Umbrathi miners who dug crystals from dangerous asteroid fields, the Felinar refugees who had lost their homeworld to Federation urban development, the Thynak scholars whose entire culture had been declared primitive and erased. All of them had one thing in common: they remembered that humans had been different. When humanity was part of the Federation, they had tried to protect the weak and speak for those who had no voice. The other alien races had seen this as weakness. Now it was becoming humanity's greatest strength. Back in the Sol system, Admiral Jiho Park walked through the construction yards hidden in the asteroid belt. The man who had once been a ship captain now commanded all of Earth's military forces. His hair had turned gray in the months since Kepler 442, and his eyes held a coldness that hadn't been there before. "Report," he said to Chief Engineer Yun-Ho, who was overseeing the construction of the new fleet. "Ship production is ahead of schedule," Yun-Ho replied, checking his holographic display. "The new vessels are incorporating everything we learned from studying alien technology during our Federation membership. Quantum fold drives that can move us anywhere in the galaxy instantly. Nanoforge weapons that can rebuild themselves during battle. Armor that adapts to enemy fire patterns." Jiho nodded as he watched robots and human workers building ships that looked nothing like the old Federation designs. These vessels were sleek and deadly, designed for speed and precision rather than the brute force tactics that aliens preferred. "And the special projects?" Jiho asked. "The Ghost Protocol is ready for deployment," Yun-Ho said with a grim smile. "Every piece of alien technology we helped maintain during our Federation years has a little surprise waiting inside. When we activate the protocol, their own systems will turn against them." "Good," Jiho said. They taught us how their technology works. Now they'll learn why that was a mistake. In the presidential bunker beneath Washington, D.C., President Jian-Yu reviewed reports from across human space, intelligence networks, military preparations, diplomatic contacts with oppressed species. Everything was proceeding according to plan. But the most important report came from Dr. Minho's psychology team. The alien leadership believes we're beaten, reported Dr. Yunji, the head of xenopsychology. Their communication intercepts show they think humans are hiding in the Sol system. Because we're afraid. They expect us to come begging for readmission to the Federation within a year. They think we're prey animals running scared, President Yu said with bitter amusement. They have no idea what we're actually doing out here. Sir, there's something else, Dr. Yunji continued. Our analysis of alien military doctrine shows they've never faced an enemy like us. They fight using overwhelming force and direct confrontation. They don't understand deception, guerrilla tactics, or psychological warfare. Their own success has made them predictable. President Yu stood up and walked to the large display showing the galaxy. Red dots marked Federation worlds, while blue dots showed the locations of oppressed species that had contacted human agents. There were far more blue dots than red ones. How long until we're ready? He asked. All preparations will be complete in 4 months, Admiral Hyun reported over the communication link. But sir, once we begin, there won't be any going back. The Federation will never accept humanity as members again. Good, President Yu replied. We don't want to be members of their club anymore. We want to burn it down and build something better from the ashes. 2 weeks later, Jiho stood before the assembled crews of humanity's new fleet. 200 ships floated in perfect formation around him, each one crewed by volunteers who had lost friends or family at Kepler 442. The vessels hummed with power, their quantum fold drives ready to carry death across the galaxy. For 3 centuries, we tried to be good Federation citizens, Jiho said, his voice carried to every ship in the fleet. We followed their rules, respected their authority, and trusted in their friendship. At Kepler 442, we learned what that friendship was worth. The crews listened in silence, remembering their fallen comrades. Today, we stop being the victims, Jiho continued. Today, we become something that will make the galaxy tremble. They called us lesser species. They abandoned us to die. They think we'll crawl back to them begging for mercy. Jiho's voice grew cold as space itself. They're about to learn why predators should never corner prey that can think. On hidden worlds throughout the galaxy, oppressed species received coded messages. The time for patience was over. The time for freedom had begun. And leading the charge would be the species that the Federation had dismissed as weak and primitive. Humanity was coming, and they were bringing justice with them. The attack began at exactly 0300 Galactic Standard Time across 12 different star systems. In the space above Velthera Prime, the Serpentine aliens' homeworld, Admiral Hyun Choi's task force materialized out of quantum fold space like ghosts, becoming real. The Veltharian orbital defense stations never had a chance to respond. One moment they were scanning empty space, the next moment 30 human ships were among them, firing weapons that the aliens had never seen before. Nanoforge missiles ate through their scaled hulls like acid through paper. Quantum torpedoes phased through their shields as if they didn't exist. Target the communication arrays first, Hyun ordered from the bridge of the UES Retribution. I want them blind and deaf before they know what's happening. Commander Tae-hyun at the weapons station smiled grimly as he targeted the massive communication towers that connected Velthera Prime to the rest of their empire. Firing quantum torpedoes, impact in 3 seconds. The towers simply ceased to exist. One moment they were there, the next moment there was only empty space where they had been. The quantum weapons didn't just destroy matter, they erased it from reality itself. Sir, called out Lieutenant Jamin from sensors, the Veltharian defense fleet is trying to form up. 12 ships moving to intercept us. Let them come. Hyun replied calmly. Activate the Ghost Protocol for all Veltharian vessels in this system. 3 light-years away, Captain Yuna Jang was leading her own mission against the Zephyrian crystal mines in the Arcturus sector. Her ships dropped out of Quantum Fold right in the middle of the mining operation, where thousands of Draknari slaves worked in conditions that would kill most other species. Broadcasting surrender demands on all frequencies. reported Communications Officer Minjay. Any Zephyrian ships that don't surrender immediately will be destroyed. The crystalline aliens. Response was predictable. Their 3 guard ships powered up their harmonic weapons, preparing to shatter the human vessels with sound waves that could break metal. But when they tried to fire, their own systems turned against them. The Ghost Protocol that Dr. Minho had, planted in Federation technology during humanity's membership, activated like a virus. Weapon systems targeted their own ships. Navigation computers sent vessels crashing into asteroids. Life support systems began flooding crystalline ships with toxic gases. The Zephyrian ships are destroying themselves, Minjay reported with amazement. Their own weapons are firing on their hulls. Good, Yuna said coldly. Signal the Draknari work groups. Tell them they're free. Any who want to join us in liberating their people are welcome aboard our ships. The response was immediate. Thousands of scaled reptilian workers dropped their mining tools and cheered. Many of them wept, the first tears of joy they had shed in decades of slavery. Within hours, Draknari fighters were flying alongside human ships, eager for revenge, against their former masters. In the Galactic Federation capital system, Chancellor Vormek received the first reports of the attacks with disbelief. The massive stone-like Calthonian leader stood in the emergency council chamber, reading data streams that made no sense. 12 simultaneous attacks? He rumbled, his voice like grinding granite. Impossible. Humans don't have the military capability for operations of this scale. Speaker Lumina's ethereal form flickered with distress. The reports are confirmed, Chancellor. Human forces have struck Veltharian, Zephyrian, and Calthonian territories simultaneously. They're using technology we've never encountered before. Technology? Vormek's stone face showed confusion. What technology? Humans use Federation standard equipment. We know all their capabilities. High Commander Sektar slithered into the chamber, his golden scales dulled with shock. Chancellor, we've lost all contact with our homeworld defense grid. The humans appeared without warning and destroyed our orbital stations in minutes. Our defense fleet, they're attacking each other. Our own ships are firing on our own ships. The chamber erupted in chaos as representatives from dozens of species began shouting questions and demands. How had the humans gotten so powerful so quickly? Where had they acquired technology that could bypass Federation defenses? Why were Federation systems turning against their own users? Silence! Vormek's voice boomed through the chamber. We are dealing with one primitive species. 40 civilizations make up this Federation. We will mobilize our combined fleets and crush this human rebellion before it spreads. But the rebellion was already spreading faster than the Federation could track. On Umbrathi mining worlds, the insectoid workers rose up against their Nexari, overseers. On Felinar refugee camps, the cat-like aliens seized Federation supply ships and began arming themselves. On dozens of worlds, species that had been oppressed for centuries suddenly found human weapons appearing in their hands and human advisors teaching them how to use them. Commander Junho Bay demonstrated humanity's new approach to warfare during the Battle of Rigel Station. When the Calthonian defense fleet arrived expecting a traditional engagement, they found something completely different. Sir, the enemy fleet is trying to force us into direct combat, reported Tactical Officer Sehyun. Ignore them, Junho ordered calmly. Target the supply depots, repair facilities, and fuel stations. Leave their ships alone. Sir? Sehyun looked confused. We could destroy their fleet with our firepower advantage. Destroying ships is wasteful, Junho explained as he watched his tactical display. Dead enemies can't suffer, but stranded enemies, with no fuel, no supplies, and no way to repair their ships. They'll understand what helplessness feels like. The human ships danced around the Calthonian fleet like wolves harassing a herd of buffalo. Every time the alien ships moved to attack, the humans simply quantum-folded away and struck a different target. Supply convoys vanished, repair stations exploded. Communication relays went silent. Within 6 hours, the mighty Calthonian fleet was floating helplessly in space, unable to fight or retreat. Their crews sent desperate messages begging for supplies and rescue, but their own support infrastructure had been systematically erased. Broadcasting message to the Calthonian fleet, Junho announced. Tell them they can surrender and be treated according to the laws of war, or they can sit there and think about what they did to our people at Kepler 442. The humiliation was complete. The Federation's strongest military force had been reduced to begging for mercy without losing a single ship in direct combat. Back in Federation capital, the emergency session had become a nightmare of confusion and panic. Reports flooded in from across their territory, human ships appearing and disappearing at will, advanced weapons that seemed to ignore the laws of physics, slave populations rising in coordinated rebellions. "How is this possible?" demanded Ambassador Krulek of the Thynak Confederation. 6 months ago, humans were barely worthy of junior membership status. Now they're dismantling our entire civilization. Speaker Lumina's form was flickering rapidly with distress. Our intelligence networks are reporting something else. The humans aren't fighting like any species we've encountered before. They're not trying to conquer territory or capture resources. They're specifically targeting our ability to maintain control over subject populations. "What does that mean?" Chancellor Vormek growled. "It means they're not trying to replace our empire," Lumina replied, her voice filled with growing horror. "They're trying to destroy the very concept of empire. They want to free every oppressed species in the galaxy." The implications hit the alien leaders like a physical blow. If humanity succeeded, the Federation's entire power structure would collapse. Species that had been slaves for centuries would become equals. Resources that had flowed to the core worlds would be redistributed. The comfortable hierarchy that kept the strong in power and the weak in chains would disappear forever. High Commander Sektar's serpentine form coiled with rage. "We cannot allow this. Issue orders for total mobilization. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. We will gather our forces and crush these humans before their rebellion spreads any further." "Yes," Chancellor Vormek agreed, his stone face hardening with determination. "Let them come with their fancy technology and their liberation promises. We have numbers. We have experience. We have the combined might of 40 civilizations." But as the alien leaders planned their counterattack, they failed to understand what they were really facing. Humanity wasn't just using new technology or advanced tactics. They were fighting a completely different kind of war. One based on justice, rather than conquest, liberation, rather than domination. The Federation had taught humanity that might made right. Now, humanity was about to teach the Federation what happened when the truly mighty decided to fight for what was right. In hidden bases throughout the galaxy, liberated slaves trained with human weapons and learned human tactics. The rebellion was no longer just about revenge for Kepler 442. It had become something much larger, a war to free every oppressed species in the galaxy, and humanity was winning. The liberation movement spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On the industrial world of Drakhan, Krixtar the Draknari stood before 10,000 of his people in what had once been a Veltharian slave processing center. Now it served as the headquarters of the Draknari Liberation Army. "For 300 years we have broken our backs building their empire," Krixtar announced, his scarred scales gleaming under the factory lights. "We have died in their mines, bled in their foundries, and watched our children taken to serve as their tools. Today, that ends." Behind him, human advisors had set up weapon distribution centers and training facilities. Captain Minseok worked alongside Draknari engineers, teaching them how to modify Federation mining equipment into military hardware. Plasma cutters became assault weapons, heavy lifters became mobile artillery, industrial fusion reactors became bombs that could level entire city blocks. "The humans have given us the tools," Krixtar continued, "but the choice to use them is ours. Will we remain slaves, or will we take our freedom?" The roar that answered him could be heard for kilometers. Within hours, Draknari revolt groups were seizing Veltharian administration centers across 40 different worlds. The serpentine aliens who had ruled them for centuries found themselves facing an enemy that knew every weakness in their systems, every secret passage in their facilities, every vulnerable point in their defenses. 3 systems away, on the crystal moon of Thyros Prime, Mothi's the Umbrathi Queen commanded her own revolution. The insectoid Umbrathi had always been treated as living tools by the Nexari, valued only for their ability to work in environments that would kill other species. Now their natural resistance to radiation and toxic gases became military advantages. "Hive, sisters!" Mothi's clicked in the harmonious language of her people. "The time of servitude is finished. The humans have shown us that chains exist only in the mind. We choose freedom. Umbrathi swarms poured out of the mining tunnels where they had labored for generations. Their chitinous shells deflected Nexari energy weapons, while their natural ability to communicate through chemical signals made them impossible to track or intercept. Within days, they had seized control of the entire Arcturus mining sector, cutting off the Federation's primary source of quantum crystals. The most unexpected uprising came from the Felinar refugees scattered across 100 different worlds. Phelan, a young Felinar female whose orange and black striped fur marked her as descended from the original homeworld nobility, had spent 5 years organizing her people in secret. "We are not the helpless kittens they think we are," she transmitted on hidden frequencies to Felinar groups throughout the galaxy. "Our ancestors were warriors who fought the Void Hunters for 1,000 years. That strength flows in our blood." Thank you. Felinar had been dismissed by the Federation as harmless refugees, suitable only for menial labor and entertainment. This proved to be a fatal mistake. Their natural agility and enhanced reflexes made them perfect guerrilla fighters. Their ability to move silently through any environment allowed them to strike Federation targets without warning. Ambassador Nari Kim coordinated these liberation movements from the mobile command ship Retribution, now serving as Earth's roving diplomatic headquarters. Her cold efficiency in organizing the systematic dismantling of Federation infrastructure had become legendary among both human and alien forces. "Report from the Draknari sector," announced Intelligence Officer Chang Min. "Krixtar's forces have captured 60% of Veltharian industrial capacity. Production of Federation warships has dropped by 40% in the last month." "Umbrathi operations?" Nari asked, reviewing data streams on her command display. "Mining output is down 70%, Changmin replied. "The Federation is running out of quantum crystals. Their faster-than-light communication network is starting to fail." Nari nodded with satisfaction. "And the Felinar sabotage operations? Supply convoys are being hit faster than the Federation can organize escorts. Phelan's people have destroyed over 200 supply ships in the last week alone." The Federation's response was exactly what Nari had predicted. Instead of addressing the legitimate grievances of the oppressed species, they decided to solve the problem with overwhelming military force. Chancellor Vormek issued orders for the largest fleet mobilization in galactic history. "Gather every available ship," the Calthonian leader commanded during an emergency military council. "Every defense vessel, every patrol craft, every transport that can mount weapons. We will assemble at Zerion Prime and crush this rebellion once and for all." High Commander Sektar's serpentine form coiled with anticipation. "How many ships will we have?" "Over 3,000 vessels," Vormek replied with grim satisfaction. "The largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Let the humans come. We will bury them under the weight of our numbers." The Federation fleet that gathered at Zerion Prime was indeed massive. Ships from 40 different species filled the space around the fortified system. Veltharian snake ships twisted through formations of crystalline Zephyrian vessels. Calthonian stone ships moved alongside the ethereal craft of the Nexari. It was a display of power meant to terrify any enemy into surrender. Admiral Jiho Park received the intelligence reports about the Federation fleet buildup with interest rather than concern. He stood in the war room aboard the UES Determination, studying holographic displays that showed the enemy formation in perfect detail. 3,000 ships, commented Admiral Hayun, joining Jiho at the tactical display. "That's a lot of firepower concentrated in one place. It's also a lot of targets," Jiho replied calmly. "They're thinking like the old Federation. Mass your forces and overwhelm the enemy with numbers. They don't understand what they're really facing." The human fleet that departed Sol's system for Zerion Prime consisted of only 300 ships. To outside observers, it looked like humanity was marching to certain destruction. The aliens had a 10-to-1 advantage in numbers, superior firepower, and the defensive advantages of a fortified system. But the humans weren't planning to fight the kind of battle the Federation expected. "All ships, quantum fold jump in 30 seconds, Jiho announced to his fleet. "Remember, we're not here to prove we're brave. We're here to prove we're right." The human fleet materialized in the Zerion system exactly where the Federation least expected them, scattered throughout the formation rather than approaching from a single direction. 300 human ships appeared among 3,000 alien vessels like wolves materializing in the middle of a sheep herd. High Commander Sektar's golden eyes widened in shock as human ships appeared on his sensors. Impossible. They're inside our formation. How did they get past our perimeter defenses? Sir, reported his tactical officer, human ships are appearing everywhere. They're not maintaining formation. Each ship seems to be operating independently. Fire on them, Sektar commanded. All ships, open fire! But when the Federation ships tried to target the human vessels, they discovered a terrible problem. The humans were so scattered throughout their formation that firing at them meant firing through their own ships. Every shot risked hitting allied vessels. Sir, we can't get clear shots, the tactical officer reported. The humans are using our own ships as shields. That was when Jiho gave the order that would end the largest space battle in galactic history before it truly began. All ships, deploy Ragnarok torpedoes. Target enemy ship cores directly. The Ragnarok torpedoes were humanity's ultimate weapon. Devices that could phase through shields and armor to detonate inside enemy ship cores. 300 human vessels each fired a full spread of 12 torpedoes. 3,600 Ragnarok torpedoes materialized inside the hulls of Federation ships. The explosions began a few seconds later, not the external fires of normal space combat, but internal detonations that tore ships apart from within. Federation vessels simply came apart, their hulls peeling away like flower petals as their cores went critical. In 12 minutes, the largest military force in galactic history had been reduced to expanding clouds of debris and scattered escape pods. High Commander Sektar found himself floating in a life pod, watching the wreckage of his mighty fleet drift past. Around him, thousands of other escape pods carried the survivors of the Federation's greatest defeat. They had been crushed so completely that many couldn't even understand what had happened. Then Admiral Jiho's voice came through every emergency frequency, calm and cold as the void between stars. Attention, Federation survivors. You came here with 3,000 ships to destroy us because we freed your slaves. You believed that might made right, that the strong could do whatever they wanted to the weak. We were excellent students of your lessons. The transmission paused, letting the words sink into the minds of the defeated alien crews. Your empire taught us that friendship means nothing when survival is at stake. You showed us that promises can be broken when convenient. You demonstrated that in this galaxy, only the strong survive. Another pause. In the escape pods, alien, survivors wept as they realized what their own cruelty had created. Thank you for the education. We will remember everything you taught us. The human fleet quantum folded away, leaving the Federation survivors floating among the wreckage of their civilization. 1 year after the betrayal at Kepler 442, the galaxy was a very different place. The Galactic Federation no longer existed. Their capital worlds lay under human occupation or had been liberated by their former slave species. The mighty alien. Civilizations that had once ruled the stars now lived under strict supervision, learning what it meant to be powerless. Chancellor Vormek knelt in the soil of a farming world called New Haven, his massive stone hands carefully planting seeds in neat rows. The once mighty Calthonian leader, who had commanded the respect of 40 species, now spent his days growing food for the refugee populations displaced by Federation wars. His warrior culture had been broken at Zerion Prime, but humanity had shown mercy by giving his people a chance to rebuild as farmers instead of conquerors. The harvest will be good this season, said Dr. Yunji, the human administrator who oversaw the Calthonian resettlement program. She spoke kindly but firmly, the way one might speak to a child learning proper behavior. Your people are adapting well to peaceful labor. Vormek looked up at her with eyes that had once burned with imperial ambition, but now held only tired acceptance. We were warriors for 10,000 years. Learning to grow instead of destroy is difficult, but necessary, Dr. Yunji replied. Your people can have a future, but only if you choose cooperation over conquest. 3 star systems away, High Commander Sektar worked in a climate-controlled archive facility, carefully documenting the crimes of the Federation for historical record. The Serpentine military leader who had abandoned humanity at Kepler 442 now served as a consultant, helping human investigators understand the full scope of alien oppression throughout the galaxy. The Draknari slave camps on Velthos Minor. He dictated to the recording device, his voice hollow with shame. Approximately 40,000 deaths per year from unsafe working conditions. The Veltharian High Command classified these as acceptable losses for maintaining production quotas. The human archivist, Commander Dohyun, nodded as he reviewed the data. And your personal involvement in these operations? I signed the orders, Sektar replied quietly. I told myself it was necessary for the greater good of the Federation. I was wrong. In the former Federation capital system, Speaker Lumina's ethereal people had lost their collective telepathic network. The Nexari had always existed as a hive mind, sharing thoughts and emotions across vast distances. Now they were isolated individuals, struggling to understand personal identity for the first time in their species' history. Lumina herself worked as a translator in the new galactic courts, helping to prosecute war crimes committed during the Federation era. Her once bright form had dimmed to a pale flicker, but she continued her work with dedication. The Felinar deportation orders from year 2341, she translated from ancient Nexari records. Directive to remove all Felinar populations from there. Homeworld to make space for a Nexari cultural center. Estimated casualties, 12 million. Judge Minju, the human magistrate overseeing the War Crimes Tribunal, made careful notes. And the justification given for this action? Cultural advancement of a primitive species, Lumina replied, her voice thick with regret. We told ourselves we were helping them by destroying their civilization. The trials had been going on, for months, documenting centuries of Federation atrocities, but humanity had made it clear that justice, not revenge, was the goal. Former Federation leaders who cooperated and showed genuine remorse were given opportunities to rebuild their lives. Those who refused to acknowledge their crimes faced exile to barren worlds where they could harm no one. On Luna Base, President Gaon Yu addressed the new Terran Commonwealth from the expanded government complex that now served as the center of galactic civilization. Around him stood representatives from dozens of species, all equals now, not the hierarchical structure that had defined the Federation. The Commonwealth grows stronger each day, President Yu announced to the assembled delegates. 37 species have joined us as full partners, with equal voices in our council. Trade flows freely between our worlds. Former slave populations are building new homes and new futures. Krikstar, the Draknari, stepped forward, his scales now bright and healthy instead of the dull gray of slavery. On behalf of my people, I wish to thank humanity for showing us that freedom was possible. The Draknari worlds are thriving under self-governance. Mothies. The Umbrathi clicked her mandibles in agreement. The hive worlds of my species produce more resources now than they ever did under Federation control. When workers are free, they work better. Phelan the Felinar, her striped fur now glossy. With good health, added her voice to the chorus of gratitude. My people are returning to our reclaimed home world. For the first time in generations, Felinar cubs are being born on the soil where our ancestors lived. Dr. Minho Lee, now serving as the Commonwealth's Minister of Technology, presented humanity's greatest gift to their new allies. All human technological advances are being shared freely with our partners. Quantum fold drives, nanoforge manufacturing, medical advances, everything we have learned is available to everyone. This was perhaps the most shocking change of all, where the Federation had hoarded technology to maintain control over lesser species. Humanity freely shared their knowledge. Within months, former slave worlds were building their own advanced spacecraft and establishing their own colonies. But the most important moment came when long-range sensors detected something unexpected at the edge of Commonwealth space. A massive fleet of unknown ships had appeared, moving slowly toward human territory. Unlike the aggressive approach of Federation vessels, these ships transmitted peaceful intentions and requests for diplomatic contact. Admiral Jiho Park, now Fleet Marshal of the Commonwealth Defense Force, studied the sensor data from his flagship. The unknown vessels were clearly damaged and overcrowded, carrying refugees from some distant conflict. Sir, reported Communications Officer Jamin, we're receiving a transmission from the lead ship. They're calling themselves the Thylorian Exodus Fleet. The main screen flickered to life, showing a creature unlike any in Federation records. Zen-Aki the Thylorian looked like a cross between a dolphin and a bird, with sleek gray skin and intelligent eyes that held deep sadness. Greetings, humans of Earth, Zenaki transmitted, her voice musical despite the translator. "We have traveled for many years, fleeing the Devourer Empire beyond the galactic rim. We heard rumors carried by traders and refugees, stories of a species that breaks chains and frees the oppressed. We seek sanctuary among those who fight for justice." President Yu himself responded to the transmission, his words carried across space to the refugee fleet. "Welcome to Commonwealth Space, Zenaki of the Thylorians. We have much to offer. Safe worlds for your people, technology to rebuild your civilization, and allies who understand the cost of freedom." "And in return?" Zenaki asked, clearly expecting some demand for payment or service. "Nothing," President Yu replied simply. "Freedom is not something to be bought or earned. It is the right of every thinking being in the universe." The silence that followed this statement lasted for several minutes. Finally, Zenaki spoke again, her voice thick with emotion. "The Devourer Empire that destroyed our worlds. They will come this way eventually. They consume everything in their path. Are you prepared for such an enemy?" Admiral Jiho stepped forward, his face showing the cold determination that had terrified the Federation. "We've faced empires before. We know how to deal with bullies who think might makes right." Behind him, Captain Aryam Song and Commander Do-hyun Kim coordinated with Commonwealth allies, already beginning to plan defensive strategies. The integrated fleets of humans, Draknari, Umbrathi, Felinar, and dozens of other species represented. A military force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ambassador Nari Kim, now serving as the Commonwealth's Minister of Alien Affairs, reviewed intelligence reports about the approaching threat. Her cold efficiency and organizing resistance had become legendary throughout the galaxy. "They call themselves the Devourer Empire," she said, reading from the Thylorian reports. "They enslave entire species and consume entire worlds. They believe that strength gives them the right to take whatever they want from weaker civilizations." President Yu smiled grimly. "Then they'll fit right in with the other empires we've encountered. The question is, are they ready to learn what happens when they threaten free peoples?" The Commonwealth fleet that assembled at the edge of their territory was massive beyond imagination. Thousands of ships from dozens of species, all working together as equals. Human quantum fold technology allowed instant coordination across vast distances. Draknari engineering made the ships nearly indestructible. Umbrathi hive mind communications created perfect tactical awareness. Felinar reflexes and Thylorian navigation skills made the fleet incredibly agile. But most importantly, they were all fighting for something the Devourer Empire couldn't understand, not conquest or resources or glory, but the simple right of all beings to live free from tyranny. As the Commonwealth fleet prepared to face this new threat, Admiral Jiho broadcast a message to every ship in the formation. "1 year ago, the Federation taught us that the strong prey upon the weak. They showed us that empires are built on the suffering of others.